Welcome to the Pop Tower Podcast with your host, the man behind the myth, Peter Dawson, and the Soulful Lordy, James Bullock.
Do not adjust your set. You may fall in. This is episode 81 of the Pop Tower. I am Peter W. Dawson.
And I am James Teddy Bullock.
Yep. And today's episode is going to be really unbearable. Much like trying to figure out how to pronounce Skylar. If you only see it written.
Oh, man.
Have I mentioned I love this freaking game?
I know.
Anyway, so for those who may not be familiar, today we're gonna be talking about video games and sort of a movie, but it's also a film version of a play. So this will be an interesting one for us because I don't think we've done too many of those.
No, I don't think we've done anything like this.
No, so this will be neat. So we're gonna talk about Persona 4 Golden, which came out a few weeks ago on Steam, and we're also gonna talk about the Disney Plus specific release of Hamilton.
Yes.
The American musical. I believe it's actually one of the subtitles is Hamilton, an American musical.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So this should be an interesting episode. Let's start with Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden was a re-release of Persona 4, which came out in 2008 on the PS2.
Yes, the famous late game launch of a system that is dying out. We always have that one great game that usually comes out during the last year or so. And in case of Persona 4, we have a great game that came out at least 3 years after the PS2 pretty much was dead.
Not 3 years, but damn close, because it came out at least a year after the PS3 did. If I'm not mistaken.
The PS3 came out in 06.
Was it 06? I thought it was 07.
No, it was 06, because I think Xbox came out in 05. 360.
My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it came out well after everyone, like, even people who were initially looking
at it. People had moved on to the Wii by this point.
Well, yeah, because everyone was looking at the PS3 at the time, and like, okay, the price is starting to come down. Maybe I'll finally get one. And that's when this comes out. So it's like, oh.
And of course, backwards compatibility wasn't a good thing back then when it comes to the PS3.
No. So, as a result, yeah, Persona 4, pretty old, and then Persona 4 Golden came out in 2012 originally on the Vita.
Yes.
So this Steam re-release is a re-release of an 8-year-old Vita game. Probably one of the 3 games the Vita was worth 3 games that was worth it on the Vita.
What were the other 2?
Off the top of my head,
mm-hmm.
Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Oh yeah.
And Dynasty Warriors Next.
I'm not gonna say I can't give an opinion on the Dynasty Warriors one, but yeah, Golden Abyss was awesome.
Yeah. It was just kind of weird because it was right in the middle, and it was like...
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was fun, and it was different. But yeah, so...
Speaking of fun and different...
Yeah, Persona 4 is very... Like, it very much fits into the Persona realm, especially how they established it starting with Persona 3, because, like, the first 2 Persona games, while still having a decent amount in common with the later titles, it's three that introduced the social link system that really started to differentiate it from being just like a sort of,
hardcore JRPG.
Yeah, like the first 2 games were more urban fantasy just in general, and were a bit more loose. It was with 3 that they really introduced the idea of it being social RPGs. And like 4 is probably the most normal.
Yeah, this is the one that, as absurd of a premise there is, it's still a little bit more believable in terms of where, in terms of like the reasoning as to why the protagonists do what they do.
Yeah, because like if 3 feels like an attempt to take the earlier aspects of the Persona games, meld it into more of a social aspect, but still kind of add in elements that are almost basically Evangelion-y.
Yes.
Especially with the specific system they used for that. Like, this one is more of an attempt to really define what, in turn, Persona 5 would build on, which was the idea that the influences in the world are very much caused by human desire.
Mm-hmm.
which again was already kind of a thing in the previous ones, but in this case, the humans are more or less the focal point.
Because the kind of supernatural aspect, as crazy as it is, still takes a back seat to more so, like you said, of the human aspect of internal desires that are either greatly repressed or are just hidden from plain sight.
Yeah. And what's interesting, too, is compared to Persona 3 and 5, which definitely have more sci-fi elements. I mean, 3 is freaking robots, androids. And 5, like, they have a whole thing where, like, there's a human understanding of what's going on, although it still ultimately pales in comparison to what is possible. You know, it's like science is starting to understand it, but it's like having someone who has a basic understanding of fire try to understand modern combustion, you know what I mean? Yeah, in this case, like, there's very little attempt to explore it beyond the mystical elements, because it kind of goes for a small-town urban mysticism set. And that works pretty well.
Yeah, because, I mean, they definitely established at the beginning of this feeling of there's a lot of urban lore and legends connected to the town. And, of course, nobody really believes it. But it definitely opens a doorway to what really does happen and what you're finding out and discovering as you progress throughout the story, that there is definitely more than meets the eye to these so-called legends.
Yeah. Yeah, like, because, like, there's still aspects of modern society, in particular with the main motif of the game, which is the Midnight Channel.
Yes.
Something that if you supposedly watch the TV, what was it, just on a rainy night?
On a rainy night, yes.
Yeah. I haven't played in about a week, so of course I immediately forgot that part of the myth. Yeah, like if you look at it on a rainy night, your soulmate will appear. So you get all these people turning on their TV at midnight in a collective attempt to try and find their soulmates, and that becomes really interesting as a result. And it kind of shows a certain reliance on technology.
Yes.
Which I do think is ultimately part of the commentary the Persona series goes for, especially with the heavier motif and tech in 3 and 5. But especially with the small town of Inaba in Persona 4, they make a point that that a new department store is coming to town and is basically kind of ruined the local economy. And part of it is the technology they have there, including being one of the only places you can find giant TVs.
Yeah. And
so on. So there's a commentary that is in some ways subtle, in some ways not, of, big corporation coming in and big tech coming to small town, which is maybe a little backwards in certain aspects. Which is one of the many, I'm talking about this a lot because I really like the motifs in the Persona games. Like, the only one I find particularly weak in this one is the basic method in which characters summon their personas, their magical powers. Because, collecting their personas is very well done, because it requires characters to confront the worst aspects of themselves.
Yes.
Which is, it's very much a game based around fear. Like, if Persona 5 was about rage, and Persona 3 was about a constant quest for knowledge, Persona 4 is about conquering fear.
Yeah.
Which, again, still ties into the, solving the mystery, because, all these games have a mystery to be solved. Persona 5 is probably the least mysterious one.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are coming into this, that's one of the main things I kind of wanted to bring up when it came to comparing this one, of course, to Persona 5, because I think a lot of people, that was their first foray into the Persona franchise, and kind of maybe have a set standard when it comes to 5 in comparison. Like, the darkness of 4, which is hilarious when you think about how, the game even starts off, how colorful and bright it feels. It is so disturbing, especially compared to 5.
Which is weird, too, because 5 still has, creepy sex offender man in the first... But 4 opens almost immediately with a murder.
Yes.
So, and, there's a whole murder mystery going on the whole time. And there's still some dark aspects even beyond that. And
then when you get to the main characters, and you see, these repressed feelings that they have about themselves. And it's really telling of not only just how a person feels, but also the culture that they're involved in, especially being in a small town.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much goes into it. Like, like the small town aspect is a huge part of this. You couldn't see this particular plot working in a larger city.
Yeah, and I mean, if you even think about like how the attitude shifts when you go to some of the bigger portions of the map, where the more how should I put this, commercial areas are, and the way that people are kind of presented, and some of the NPCs, is like the mindset is totally different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that fits appropriately with the fog motif, because fog is one of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
When the fog sets in, usually after days of rain, which means the weather system is really important in that respect.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that aspect of 4. Like,
mm-hmm.
you always were against, especially once again compared to 5. You know, you're still against the clock is still against you when it comes to trying to go through dungeons and complete certain missions. But I love the idea of the physical manifestation of the clock being against you. Like, literally, it's this fog is setting in. If you do not hurry up and finish what you have to finish, it's game over.
Yeah. And, like, unlike with Persona 5, like, the weather was just kind of a thing that could affect the metaverse, but it wasn't ultimately that much of a factor. The big thing was just the countdown clock to the day where the thing is going to happen that you have to prevent.
Yeah, they will always say, okay, you have to finish this by this day in 5. And that was it. Like, if you had a rainy day, it might just affect what social link you couldn't interact with. Whereas with this actually, when it comes to the weather, plays a huge role in the interactions with people, and like certain objects that you cannot get, certain missions that you can't finish. And like you said, when it comes to just completing a dungeon, like, it's huge. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things is, well, I will never fault people for using guides to help max social links to get the first ending on the first go, because this is a long game.
Yeah.
I'm the same way about Persona 5 Royal.
Yep, same here.
At the same time, it is kind of neat if you go in without a guide.
Yeah, and
so you can, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, first playthrough, don't do a guide. Just let it flow naturally.
Yeah. Unless you feel like you have too many games, in which case I will forgive you.
Yeah. Like, if you feel like, okay, I'm not going to play this anytime soon ever again, like, I can understand why you would want to do that, but if it's any consolation, especially for people that have played 5, more than likely, you will be incentivized to replay this game.
Yep. That's great. And I wanted to mention a few things related to the changes that Golden made over the original, because these are important.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, these are really important. Because one of my there's some big stuff like combat got improved, so there's more like cool quirks like what was it? There's the tag team attacks and the cavalry attacks.
Yeah, and a lot more team ups, a lot more assist.
Yeah, which is something that Persona 5 fans will now probably appreciate, because that's a big thing in 5.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite though was they added a scene skipping function.
Yeah, you're right.
The original didn't let you do that.
That's right.
And there was like a couple other things. Like there's a new garden mini game.
Mm-hmm.
There was I'm just trying to remember. I may have to go to the list in a second.
Yeah,
I'm going off
I'm
my
actually
memory
gonna look now too.
Oh, you could also leave the house at night.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that wasn't in the original.
Yeah, it was originally it was basically just like 4 things you could do, and it was like, and while 2 key social links are in your house that you have to do at night, there's a few others. There was a few other things you could do, but it wasn't too many, and it was like, well, that's kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result, now you can do more of that. There's new areas, of course. There's some more cutscenes. I think they added a couple new difficulties.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, because which is hilarious when I think back. If you're playing Persona 5 and going to this, I can tell you right now, like, Persona 4's normal is the equivalent of hard for Persona 5. Like, easy is pretty much Persona 4's easy is pretty much Persona 5's normal. So it's a little bit more difficult.
The one trick though is because the first dungeon in particular, you don't really have a good way to recover SP.
Right.
So if you want to try to blitz the whole dungeon in one playthrough, it might be a good idea on your first playthrough to have it on the lower difficulty, because there's a couple of enemies that will flat out nullify physical attacks.
They will work you over. Because I mean, just like with Persona 5, there's this trial and error when it comes to figuring out like what is an enemy's weakness, and certain enemies, especially even in the latter dungeons, physical attacks won't just be blocked, but they could even be absorbed for HP.
Yeah. So it's a whole thing. But before we get into the characters, I just want to also mention there's one new character in particular who comes with her own social link. And There's another new social link which I won't spoil.
No.
Because that's a spoiler right there.
Yeah, that's a
pretty
big
good
spoiler.
one though.
No, that's really great. I love it.
Yeah. But I wanted to, before we talk about the characters a bit, just to wrap this up, because I think that's the other major thing we can do, is I wanted to talk about, or I was just curious, because like in Persona 3, the invokers, which look like guns that you fake shoot yourself with,
right?
That kind of falls into the game's motif of death,
right?
And then Persona 5 was the whole idea of masks, people revealing their true self, so you rip off the mask. Now, I haven't seen a lot of discussion about this, but the card motif, do you think it's because of the whole mystery aspect? You don't know what it's going to be until you flip it over?
To a certain extent, yes, and then I just think it was a system that they enjoyed and they just threw it in there. Like, it didn't really get that explanation. Like you said, if you look at how they explain the comparisons and the imagery for 3 and 5 when it comes to summoning in Persona, you don't get that in 4. And it just feels like that was just a system that they came up with. They thought, hey, man, this is pretty cool. It works. Which it is. I really do love the card system when it comes to the game. And to me, it's one of those things that it definitely has a lot more pros and cons compared to what they implemented in 5. Especially when it comes to trying to go through a dungeon in one shot. Like the skill cards in 4 makes it a lot more redeeming and forgivable if you try to make it through a whole dungeon in one shot. But in terms of like how it connects to the universe and the story and even more so the characters, it really didn't play a role at all. It doesn't make any sense.
No, like they don't talk about it too much in 5, but there's definitely a mask motif. And 3, of course, the recurring motif of death. So it's like they don't need to explain it.
Right, exactly.
And I think they have a bit of an explanation if I'm remembering right. But yeah, in this case, Persona 4, the cards are kind of there, which is a disappointing lack of depth. So I guess it could be open to interpretation, but it's like it could have been.
It just felt like it was a part of a big info dump, and that was it. Like, okay, that's the system that you're working with, and that's it.
Yeah. I do like though. Oh yeah, this is something we should also mention. The big thing about Persona 5 versus Persona 4, for those who are listening who are maybe thinking about checking it out after having played Persona 5, the dungeons are random to a degree.
Yeah, they are. If you're expecting like coming in with the same kind of static dungeons that were in 5, that's not the case. Ooh. Every floor that is associated with a dungeon, whatever specific dungeon that you're going through, is more like mementos in 5, but just of course designed to fit that dungeon's aesthetics.
Yeah, like the dungeons are. I enjoy the dungeons in 4 a bit more than I do Mementos in 5.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's nice is you can revisit them after you beat them, unlike in 5. But there's a few aspects that are kind of disappointing still, just with the random dungeon motif. I mean, it does mean less puzzles, more just trying to find the next floor.
Right.
But the floors are also bigger, so there's more to do. And that actually leads me to the other thing that I really liked that they did in Persona 5, where they emphasized stealth, sneak up on shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in 4, you don't have as much opportunity for such things.
Yeah, there are certain times when you can get around them and strike a shadow and get a potential player advantage. But a lot of times they, of course, will sense you and then chase you. And then that's one thing I've always disliked about 4 is that sometimes it makes it a little bit difficult to judge exactly when to swing before they hit you.
Yeah. That about sums it up. I mean, if there's one thing I definitely think 5 maybe overcompensated for was that.
Yeah. Especially when you think about some of the ladder dungeons and maybe some of the puzzle-centric dungeons that we have in 5. Like, they were like, okay, we have a better idea how to present this, and they just kind of went full steam ahead. Like, okay, we're going to just go as much as we can. And if you get a little confused, that's on you.
Yep. Yeah, some of the dungeons in 5 could have been better, but I mean, like, you know.
But like you said, I like that a lot more. The static dungeon I like a lot more than the randomized dungeons of 4.
Absolutely. That's still a thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the characters
Okay.
for a little bit, because might as well, because I think we still got like only 20 minutes
Oh
of
yeah.
recording
Oh
at
yeah.
most.
Oh yeah.
This isn't like last time.
No. We can't do that again.
We really can't. Oh man. So the protagonist, as usual, is pretty much a blank slate.
Yes.
Although I will say, the anime version of the protagonist I actually quite love.
Yeah. And I will. To me personally, I actually like him more than I like Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Even just in playing 4 and just the game itself, I thought as a character it just feels a lot more natural that he's a part of the group.
Yeah. Well, no, he fits in a lot better, and I think that's something glaring that you even notice in the anime versions.
Yeah.
Because, like, well, besides Persona 5's anime not being very good,
Yeah.
like Persona 4, they do a really good job with his character, even though they start him off as very much a blank slate.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't talk much. But later on, when they give him more personality, it's amazing.
And I love the character interactions. Like, you have a lot more choices in how he answers, how he interacts with certain characters. And it feels like he has a lot more of a human aspect than Joker did. Where it just felt like Joker was the leader, essentially. That was the main thing. Whereas this character, whatever you want to call him, of course he has a name in the anime that we've soon discovered, but in case of the Persona game, he's just the hero, or whatever you want to name him. Yeah. And he comes across a lot more relatable and a lot more enjoyable to play as, from a personality standpoint. Like, just trying to ease the incredibly sorrow heart of your quote-unquote little sister. It's just a beautiful thing to see every time.
Oh my god, that whole storyline is so cute.
Yes.
And yeah. But in this case, yeah, like, so your protagonist, he's, your typical high school kid whose parents are going overseas for a year, so he ends up in a small town living with his cousin and his uncle.
Right.
Yeah, so he quickly befriends Yusuke Hanamura, because there usually has to be someone who has, like, a good bro name.
Yeah.
And Yosuke is a pretty good bro name.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's basically the son of a richish dude, because his dad's the manager at the mega store.
Yes.
So he's like seen as the spoiled rich kid who.
But I mean, I can't even say that. I know that's how he's seen, but we see he's a hard worker too. That's the thing. It's not like he's just being handed money.
No, like, he is genuinely a very good dude, but like, there's that he's kind of
he can be a little bit pretentious at times and loud, and just generally he's that guy that is going to be that annoying friend that you have. Like, you know he has a good heart, but sometimes he can just go a little overboard.
Yeah, like, he doesn't go as overboard as Ryuji does, because Ryuji's more of a
not
hothead.
at all.
Like, this is the thing, I always thought about it, and then Yusuke in particular, he's still more of a gentle dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's still a bit of a dork and a bit of an idiot more than a few times.
Yes.
But like, if Ryuji is a serious enabler, Yusuke is more of a casual enabler.
Yes.
And, I do love... Like, what was really interesting was apparently at one point he was supposed to be a gay love interest.
Wow.
I know. And then they cut it out, and they almost overcompensated for it.
Yeah, but considering one of the characters we're going to talk about, like, they really went a completely different direction when it comes to that.
I know. Like, that's the interesting thing. Like, if anything, 4 has better representation than 5 does.
Yes.
Especially with those certain characters in 4.
Oh, my goodness.
So glad they toned that down.
I know.
Yeah, and then you get, as you might expect, you get the high energy, tough girl, Chie.
Yes, Chie.
In particular, loves her martial arts.
Who can't see anything but green.
Yeah. No, she's pretty great.
Yeah.
She is very good at her archetype. And, like her and Yukiko, the very elegant, refined, basically the closest thing you have to a princess in the personality sense in the party. And, like, she's got that very repressed sense of humor.
Yes. Yeah, and I just love the fact that it's a big difference, like, with certain characters in 5, where, we see them grow, but they pretty much stay to the archetype Whereas, like, especially like Yukiko, where we see this growth and this change when it comes to her character, and when we get to a point where you see her laughing, and one of her traits we find out is that once she gets the giggle bug, once she starts laughing, she just can't stop, and it's so annoying to Chie. It's just hilarious because you just wouldn't think that would be the dynamic between the two.
No, it's very endearing. That's actually another thing. Going back to the gay motif, like there is at one point an implication that she and Yukiko, they might have been a thing,
right?
If they were into each other, which they can't be because protagonist has to ship himself with everyone.
Protagonist has that harem complex all the time.
Oh yeah, I think that came up a couple times in the anime.
Yeah,
because they ship him with everyone in the anime.
Yeah.
Oh no, with one exception, but we'll get to that. But yeah, no. Speaking of which, Yukiko was my first choice, my first playthrough.
Hey, same here.
Yeah, no, she's one of my favorite female characters in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course we meet Teddy.
Yes.
Who, depending on how you feel about bear puns, is either the best or worst character. I love Teddy.
He is one of those characters that grew on me. Like, originally, when you first see him, when you first interact with him, it doesn't feel special at all. Like, he just feels like this mascot that they need to have. And then as the game progresses, of course, like, it's just easy to really love Teddy.
Well, yeah, especially later on as his character develops.
Yes.
And, like, I like him so much more than Morgana as well.
Oh, yes.
He's more naive.
Especially with the reveal. Like, the reveals are so much better.
Oh, yeah. Like, I do think Morgana's a compelling character, but if it's a contest to see which one is more endearing and less annoying, it's Teddy for me all the time.
I was just about to say the same thing. Like, Morgana started off so annoying, and it lasted for a long time before we had, like, some big revelation with the character. And then when it happened, that's like, oh, okay, now I get it. But before that, no, just annoying.
Yeah. No, ultimately, as a result, the characters, like Teddy, I think some parts of it still bother me and are a little weird, but like he just doesn't understand.
Right.
He wants to understand, but he doesn't, and he's cheerfully naive about it. That's super enjoyable.
Yes.
As a result, the character's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what were we talking about? All right, we got to talk about kanji next, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy, kanji. Probably one of the most interesting explorations of toxic masculinity. And like, there's still debate to this day about his sexuality. Is it also leaning into his sexuality, or is it just the idea of masculinity and the toxicity of it all?
Yeah, I've always looked at it more so of someone just trying to find who they are and how they interact with others, especially in a sexual manner. He, to me, leans more like to a pan if that was the way they were going to go with it. Of course, this was a long time. It was a long time before a lot of people started understanding a lot more of sexual orientations. Of course, in 2008 and leading into 2011, 2012. But for me, it's the way they had his character explain himself. It was less about a sexual attraction and more of a sexual interaction, and just trying to determine, whether or not I feel comfortable being and interacting with certain people of a certain gender or just non-gender identifiers.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah.
As well as like what image he wants to project onto the world, which of course leads back to his family issues. Although my favorite part of his character is just his weapon. Because he starts wielding a desk.
Yes!
And later on it turns into like shields and stuff.
And he has a steel chair, and then you have a shield.
Like, it's just large, long, flat-edged objects that he clubs people with.
It's giant, blunt objects. If he was walking down the street and grabbed something, the first thing he'd grab that he thought that could bash someone's head in, that was what he grabbed, and that's what he took, and that's what he takes into a dungeon.
Must be that joke from Family Guy. Get out here and I'll beat you with this long blonde instrument I get to hit beats with my cracker. It's kind of like a bat.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and then we got Rise, who is the teen idol, of course, because we need someone kind of like that in these games.
Yeah, of course.
In this case, teen idol who moves back to small town, goes to work in family bakery. So she's got the bakery motif, she's got the celebrity motif, and being the lover's character, no shock, she's the one who's most blatantly attracted to the protagonist prior to a romance arc.
Mm-hmm.
Which was funny, because that was something they didn't really do in 5. They just sort of had at points where the game would seem like, hey, let's have a ship moment with this character.
Right.
And they did it with a few of them. So, and then of course if you play Royal, it's pretty obvious which one they're going for.
Yeah.
Because Royal isn't subtle at all in that one. But yeah, Rise is a pretty solid character as a result. Because it does go into the whole what she needs versus what she wants. And oh, by the way, there's this thing with the freaking Lover's Arcana. In the moment where you have to confess your feelings, if you don't, you look like such a dick.
Yes.
It's happened in On's one in 5, and it happens in Rise's 4
one.
too.
This one, yes.
Both of them were really harsh, and I'm just like, ugh. That's one thing I will say about, actually, since we've been talking about this a bit, I liked 4 versus 5 is I thought the romantic confessions in 4 were a lot better than in 5.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, there's some very cute ones in 5.
But yeah, they feel a little bit, these feel a little bit more, a lot more grounded. That's the thing.
Yeah,
in 4.
yeah, and like, they feel, like, more varied. Like, in 4 or 5, a lot of them are just, like, two characters sitting, and then they talk, and then...
And then they kiss, and that's it.
Yeah, or well, half the time they don't even kiss. It's just
true,
like, oh, okay.
True, yeah.
And they're like, all right, wait, we're in a relationship? Okay, we're in a relationship. And half the time it's like super flat, too. Mm-hmm. There's some really cute ones, like Futaba, of course. She's like, okay, I have to talk sexy now.
Right.
And she doesn't know how to do it because she's only watched TV. But, like, look at Makoto's when she's like, oh, I guess we're in a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, for someone who's trying to resist being a robot... That felt a little weak.
It really did.
Meanwhile, and then there's the on one where if you don't hug her, you feel like a dick.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's get to the last character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Naoto, who
yes.
we really have to talk about the spoiler. Female detective prince.
Yes.
Very much an insecurity about being a woman in a world dominated by men.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as we see throughout the entire game when it comes to the research and the murder investigations of how little female interaction there is, and then we come to this character. Oh man!
Naoto as results is a pretty enjoyable character, and
yes.
It's like a good detective rival without being insufferable. Like, you know, they weren't setting Naoto up to be.
I'm somewhat looking at you, Persona 5.
Well, like, Akechi, it was always meant to be more of a rival,
right.
So that's fine. But, like, Makoto, before the reveal with her, she was kind of insufferable, which was kind of the point,
mm-hmm.
right? But with Naoto, almost never insufferable.
No, not at all. No, you want to work with her.
Yeah, and one of my favorite scenes is, of course, the scene in the where they play the King game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the game, it's already hilariously awkward, and then in the anime, it's just so delightfully over the top. Oh man, that scene in the anime is just great. Yeah. But no, as a result, all the characters in the core party are pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of the supporting social link characters are maybe not so great. The old lady's nice.
Yeah.
The nurse is The was it the social club ones? Is it the music club or the drama club, right?
Drama club, yeah.
Yeah, those two. Are those the social clubs or the culture clubs?
No, okay, the culture is drama, right? Drama and music?
Yeah, culture, drama, and music, and then there's sports clubs, which are, of course, soccer or basketball.
Right.
Yeah, neither sports. Well, the sport ones still kind of tie together, so they're all right, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's one of the ones that it feels like they had an idea, and then they kind of just didn't know how to end it properly.
Yeah. And then the culture ones, like, they each have their own storyline, which is cool, but, like, none of the characters are honestly that engaging.
No. Once again, like they got a good premise, but just the characters that are involved in the premise just don't click. Just doesn't.
No, I mean, they still got some cute storyline elements to be sure, but like if you compare that even to like the Moon storyline, which is probably one of the more interesting ones.
Yeah.
Because it's about the social queen at school,
Mm-hmm.
and like that gets real interesting. Plus, it introduces you to certain gameplay aspects, which I do enjoy.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd say overall, Persona 4 Golden. If you liked 5, you'll definitely like Golden now because it has like a lot of the aspects that they would implement more in 5.
Yeah.
You just got to go in kind of with an open thing, but like it was probably one of my favorite games of 2009.
Yeah. I will wholeheartedly say it's definitely unfortunate it came out so late in the PS2 era that not a lot of people got a chance to play the original at least.
Yeah.
And it will go down as one of the best to me JRPGs of that era.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Golden was just made that much better. So
yeah, like no, Golden is an improvement, and the new character, which we haven't really talked about,
right.
Marie, she's really well done.
Very much so.
Like she's very much a walking spoiler, and her more than anyone, I don't want to spoil.
And that's the amazing thing. Like we talked about Royal when it comes to the new character, and kind of like the way they put her into the story. Whereas like with the characters, the extra social links in this one to me flowed a lot better in the way they put them into the story, into the world.
Yeah, no, I'm just so glad this game's getting another chance.
Oh,
and its popularity on Steam.
And that's the amazing thing, is just to see how... of course, we know that a big reason for the popularity is because of the popularity of 5. But hopefully this is like that... And actually, also, we've had the recent announcement for the Switch. So, like, it's growing, and it's great to see so many people really getting into the franchise now. And thankfully, the developers are going out of their way to try to give the gamers an opportunity to play these games. Because, of course, there's a lot more of a struggle to try to enjoy them.
Yeah.
Even just a year ago compared to now.
It's true. And now, of course, we're still waiting on Scramble Strikers.
I know.
Speaking of Dynasty Warriors. But hopefully that'll come out soon. So we should probably dive into the other thing, though, at this point.
Yes.
Let's talk about Hamilton, American musical.
Another thing that would have cost you a lot of money to enjoy before 2020.
Oh my god. What was the wait list at? 2 years?
Yeah.
Just
man.
Brutal. I know, it's one of those things, too, because, like, it's also... anyway, you know what? Let's just go to the beginning.
Yeah, let's go.
So Hamilton was originally produced in, 2015? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a Broadway musical based on a 2004 biography of Alexander Hamilton. And it was... The thing was more or less... Like, he didn't direct it, but it was basically the brainchild of Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes.
Who really kind of, when you read the book, really got engrossed in it, and then ultimately it was also produced by Thomas Kail, who is also the director. And so as a result, these two guys kind of went and looked at the story of Alexander Hamilton and thought, this is a really interesting story, and there's a lot of elements that could really resonate with people no matter where they come from who are American.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, because one of the important things they emphasize right off the bat is that Alexander Hamilton was born in a Caribbean island.
Yes.
And so as a result, is kind of like, and he was an orphan as well. And of course, I think they even say son of a whore a couple times.
Yeah, they do, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so as a result, it's like, this is a guy who has to find his roots in his country. Which I think is one of the most important things of any immigrant goes through.
Yeah, and if you also add to the fact of the time period, and knowing American slavery, and the generation that would come from the original slaves, they would have to grow up in a society that doesn't accept them or understand them. Yeah,
exactly. Like, there's a lot of just... As a result, like, that part alone is very compelling. And then to look at Hamilton, who was definitely an accomplished founding father, like, in his own right. I mean, most of the founding fathers, as a result, had pretty extraordinary lives.
Yes.
Like the ones we always talk about. And Hamilton, of course, is on the American 10?
He's on the 10, yeah.
Yeah, because, well, in terms of the Founding Fathers, he wasn't the guy who was one of the presidents. He wasn't the guy who was one of the vice presidents. He wasn't. Did he sign the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, he wasn't. He is the most famous signee on the Declaration of
Right.
Independence. That's what I'll go for. I honestly don't remember that part.
No,
Again, I don't know American history as well as you do, for rather obvious reasons. But I respect this story.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
that's something I want to say right off the bat. Yeah, like, as a result, and so we get a spotlight on a guy who you probably heard about, but you don't know what his own accomplishments are.
Exactly.
Which is kind of funny, because it almost makes the whole thing feel a bit like a self-insert fanfic of history.
Yeah. I've been trying to wrap my brain. I'm just trying to think about it, and all I can think about is like the I Love Lisa episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Like that's every time I thought about when I was hearing about it over and over again, and that was the thing I always thought about was that episode because of how it sounds with the way they portrayed Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, I know. There's it's that, and it's almost like the Forrest Gump moment, right?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this guy did this and this and this. It's like, wait, what?
Wait, no, this does not sound possible.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like, because when you consider, like, that's part of the charm, because, like, if you also look at, just to compare him to a person probably better known, William Shakespeare,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of people were convinced for a long time that he was maybe not the guy who wrote his own plays.
Yeah, but there's a lot of discrepancy back then.
Yeah, and then part of it, though, was it was ultimately rooted in just snobbery.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the disbelief that Alexander Hamilton could accomplish things he did, even when we see a play that's, well, romanticized, no doubt, still very much influences his life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like there's that element of snobbery still there.
It's definitely rooted in reality, but like you said, it's just the idea that this one person could be so responsible for a lot of things that have trickled down and affect society as of now. It is almost unbelievable. But on the same token, you think about how much the Founding Fathers did and how much they had to establish to get this union as the United States of America as it was in order. You have to have someone with a mindset that has almost like an architectural mindset that Alexander Hamilton had. And to see it play out in, like you said, a romanticized version, yet done in such a way that it is so enjoyable.
I know, and part of the reason it feels so romanticized and kind of unrealistic is just the recurring motif.
Yes.
Which Lin-Manuel and everyone really did a good job integrating into the plot. Like, you know, some are goofier than others. Like, of course, the whole not throwing away my shot recurring motif.
Yes.
You know, when they first introduced it, it's kind of in a goofy way. But then when you realize how the whole thing ends and you see how it all ties together, it's like, okay, that's not a bad recurring motif.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some other pretty good ones. One of my favorites is still whenever friggin' Eliza. I got to talk about that. When she talks about inserting herself back in the narrative.
Yes.
Because that's kind of one of the things they fully acknowledge, even as they give probably one of the better songs of the play, the Schuyler Sisters song, which is where I love that, because it's like Angelica comes out, says her name with confidence, and Eliza says her name in like a sing-song, almost ethereal way, which ends up tying into the plot, and then of course Peggy, who doesn't really matter, and Peggy's just like, I'm not gonna matter later on. Like that song is actually pretty awesome. I gotta say.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, like that one really capitalized well on, in particular. Hang on, sorry, I'm about to clear my throat.
Okay, all right. You having a Groff moment here?
Yes. Well, I've been trying to. Oh man, I can't. We got to talk about that too. There's so many good things we need to talk about in this freaking musical. But like Renee Elise Goldsberry, she's really good in that song.
Oh, she is absolutely phenomenal.
like she's good in the other ones too, but I think like I know a lot of people love Rewind.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love, like, in particular, her lead through the Skylar Sisters song. Because, I mean, like, what's her nuts? Philippa Sue, or So?
Yeah, you're right, second one.
So, yeah, Philippa Sue. Like, she's good in that, too, but, of course, she's very much, I think she says the least in that one.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, and which is probably by design, whereas Peggy, of course, she's got the joke, and then later on, she's the main one who argues with Angelica. But, yeah, no, Angelica, that one is so good. And, like, that one was hard to top, except, of course, around the same time, not soon after, we got Jonathan Groff in his
King George
delightfully,
III.
like, oh, man. Well, I mean, look, it's King George III.
As a Mad King himself.
Yes, he is the historical Mad King. Of course he's going to be camp and over the top. And his songs are so great because they're very much like passive-aggressive, abusive spouse in almost darkly comedic effect.
Yes.
And at one point he, of course, very famously spits as he talks, which is like, yeah, that's madness, all right.
And I love the fact that they kind of give him this bubble. A majority of his songs have this 60s bubblegum British pop sound to it.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is so demeaning and insulting.
Oh, I know, like, and the way he says it too, in some ways, is very much like passive aggressive. Like, this is what I mean by saying abusive spouse in almost a way, because he's like, it's like, what are you gonna do without me? Yeah. Remember, you belong to me. And then, of course, the casual way he says, "I will kill your friends and family."
Yeah.
Which I did not do justice to that just now.
You'll come crawling back to me, and if not, I'll kill you anyway.
Oh man, he's so good in that. I really wish, the only thing is, I wish I could have seen some of the other actors doing that, because that's one I would love to see.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because in the original cast, at least, King George was also the only one intentionally played by a white guy.
Right, yeah.
Because one of the aspects they lean into in Hamilton is, because Hamilton himself was, of course, an immigrant and everything, they kind of saw the appeal to, because, like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course, is from Puerto Rico, which is, well, technically part of the United States. They're still seen as immigrants.
That's right.
I remember famously, Supreme Justice Sotomayor, Obama called her parents immigrants, even though they're from Puerto Rico.
Yes!
Which is like, that's, you know.
Like, I know what you're trying to do, but you did the wrong way.
Yeah. Politics. I'm just going to leave that alone. I'll just let that sink in. But, yeah. So as a result, they have a very diverse cast. Like, even, all over the place. Like, even Philippa Sue is part... I forget the ancestry now. But she's not like white Caucasian European.
Right, just full, yeah.
I forget what Asian country her family is partially from. It's kind of the point I'm making, though. It's a very diverse cast, and it's done with an intent.
Yeah.
To show that no matter what someone's racial background, that you can identify with this story.
And I also love the fact that, also, like you said, just the fact of it feels like this inclusion to it. But also, once again, we look at the time. Even though they do not, and that's one that I did appreciate, the fact that we do not go into the fact that, yes, during this time, we are in the heart of American slavery.
Mm-hmm.
They do bring it up, though. There are some moments where they do reference it.
One of my favorites is when they're doing the final song at the end, Eliza talks about speaking out against slavery, and George Washington in the background is like, "Aw."
Yeah!
But, it's funny, because, like, Washington himself, didn't he free his slaves when he died?
Yes.
Like, he tried to lead by example in that respect, and, well, he biffed that.
Yeah. Yeah, but also...
At least he meant well.
Yeah, of course, yeah, like, at least he meant well. But also, like I said, this is, in the heart of American slavery, and the idea that the country, as we're seeing these figures that are responsible for helping build the country, are presented as people of color. Which, in reality, we would not have the United States if not for these type of people.
Absolutely.
So I love the fact that they had that kind of dichotomy of, hey, look, of look at Daveed Diggs playing Thomas Jefferson, playing the third president.
Well, yeah, well, him in particular, because like, Jefferson was very much a flamboyant man, and Daveed Diggs does a good job playing up that flamboyancy. But
very much so.
Oh, yeah, you have to really remind yourself. Oh yeah, Thomas Jefferson was like the whitest guy.
Yeah. No, I just love the casting, and not just because of the racial intent, but also the fact that the cast is absolutely phenomenal. Like you said, Renee, her performance is phenomenal, just outstanding, and Leslie Odom Jr.
Oh my god! No, the whole cast is great.
The whole cast is brilliant. I'm not going to say one is better than the other in that regard, but just like the person that he was portraying, him being Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. If you cannot hate a dude as much as they make me dislike him.
Oh, yeah, once again, I know, right?
That natural, the way they wrote the script, that natural feeling of condemnation and just being that condescending tone for certain characters just worked so well.
Yeah. Well, in particular, I love, I want to call it one of the performance in particular. It's got to be, okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to get this name right. Akirate Onadoan?
Yeah.
Yeah, him as Madison, like, he's great as Hercules,
he
of
does,
course.
It's funny because, like, a majority of the characters, like, their first one they're good at. The second one...
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, like, when they shift, yeah, like... But probably the only one who's probably balanced as both is Ramos. Yeah, going from Hercules, he's like, this very... He doesn't do a lot, but he's there. He's kind of just sort of the chorus, and he's pretty awesome when he does get his bits. But then as Madison, he's just so delightfully understated, like in the rap battles.
Yes.
Where it's like where Thomas Jefferson's going on a whole thing, and he's like, you know what helped us? And Madison's like, France.
Yeah.
Like. Again, you want to talk about racial overtones? He's never sounded more white.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, but yeah, there's so many good songs. Like, I don't know what else to say. I want to talk about Ramos, but do you have anything else you want to go on first?
No, and as you brought up, look, a majority of when it comes to the musical stylings, of course, is rap. And I just love so many little nods to, especially like 90s, late 80s, early 90s hip hop. Like, there are references to Nas, there are references to Notorious B.I.G., there are references to Jay-Z, there's references to Tupac, there's references to Mobb Deep. Like, it's amazing if you are a hip hop head to listen to this and see how many references there are. And it's like that whole feeling, man, Biggie was stealing off of Hamilton.
Damn you, Big E.
No, but
Hamilton killed Biggie.
Yeah, no. The ghost of Hamilton came back for Biggie. That's what happened. That's why we can't find him. But also, it's not just rap too. That's what I thoroughly enjoy as I brought up, like King George III and his songs. There is so many different musical stylings that they presented in this that I did not expect. Like, all you hear about is the rap portions. That's all when it came from the promotional material. But when you watch it and you experience it, like, it's amazing how many musical influences there are in this well, and in this case, this film.
Yeah, like, the musical motifs in general are pretty, like, because, well, hip-hop and rap make up the core of it. Like you said, we got the kind of bubblegum elements with Groff in particular, and, like, the Schuyler Sisters almost feels a little bit, I want to say Gloria Estefan, but I don't think that's right. Who am I thinking of? Because it reminds me of, like, it's not exactly like female Motown either. What am I thinking of?
Yeah.
Because they have, like, that high energy almost.
It's like it's getting into like more of a funk and disco, but it's not that far, you know.
Yeah, like I think that's where I'm getting Gloria Estefan from.
Yeah.
I almost want to say Earth, Wind and Fire, but no, that's not quite right. Either, like, it's that very it's probably a bit more R&B.
More
probably
upbeat,
the best way to put it.
Upbeat R&B, yeah.
Upbeat funk R&B is probably the best way to, which I think is one of the reasons that song still stands out to me. And of course, I really love some of the transition songs, like the Yorktown song. And of course, which has that great immigrant line.
Yeah. Oh,
immigrants, we get the job done. But like that song in general is really good.
Yeah, no, it's
then
really, really good. Yeah.
And there's the kind of more jazzy "What Did I Miss?"
Mm-hmm.
That one's pretty good. But like, and of course, "Room Where It Happens." That is mine right there. "Room Where It Happens" is really good.
Yes, that was the one I was gonna bring up. Like, if we had to talk about like what was the ones like "Room Where It Happens." That is my song.
That's probably a bit more. What would you say? That's more hip hop.
Yeah.
But a bit of a jazzy group too. You know, that kind of fits into that mold. And of course, like, honestly, flat out, my favorite is just in terms of the whole motif and like what the point of the whole thing was: is who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Oh yes, yes.
God, that's one of my favorite ending songs of any play. Oh man, like I just want to. I just want to hug a song.
Yeah.
Because I find it very haunting at points too. Like the only thing is like the style is very, but like I think it sums up probably not just the musical, but just like history in general so well. And like it's not very subtle at points, but still, like it's just love it so much. Like, yeah, this is a great musical, even if you don't care about American history.
Yeah.
And, like, of course, you might find like, I'd argue even looking at it, if they look at history in a romantic sense, which, you know, this is what we always do when we look at history. We very rarely really want to look back at history and think, oh, yeah, oh, man, look at all the messed up stuff that happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Because ultimately it's a story about the founder of the country, the man who helped ultimately build the current American economy the way it is. You know, we'll see if it still survives.
Yeah.
Topical humor.
I tell you.
Yeah, but
if you didn't know this was 2020.
Yeah. I think it's ultimately very engaging, and I would argue it probably helps people still, you know, despite the ups and downs, feel pride for their country and you know, admire the parts of the history. You just gotta take the good with the bad.
Exactly.
You know, duels still happen, and duels are stupid, and they quite frequently lampshade in that frickin' song.
Oh, man!
So it's like, yeah.
No, I like, this is kind of out of my wheelhouse to a certain extent, and yet here I am, you know, singing his praises for no other reason than it was just so enjoyable. This is, and one, if you haven't seen it, I must preface this by saying, you know, it is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel, majority of the time, it doesn't feel like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
No, it flows really well.
Yeah, no, it flows incredibly well. It's something that, make sure, you know, you're in with the best sound that you can have possible, the biggest TV that you can have possible, and just sit back and enjoy it, because I guarantee you, like you said, if it's not even if you're a fan of American history, the way they present it, the way they present the story, the way they present the characters, and most importantly, the way they had the musical numbers, it is just a tour de force. Like, I am thoroughly surprised just how remarkable it is to say, yes, not only did it live up to the hype, but it exceeded it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think it's going to go down as one of the more beloved musicals of the 2010s.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that and Book of Mormon are probably the two that are.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, now Book of Mormon is your time to shine. What streaming service will you be on?
Yeah, hopefully, maybe Comedy Central will pick it up. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, hopefully they recorded it, because some of the songs of that one are pretty good. Oh,
really good. Yeah, exactly.
Turn it off. I think on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode. But, you know, honestly, it was really nice just to talk about something in depth that we just love.
Yeah, two things that we really do enjoy.
Yep, and I'm hoping that streak is going to at least partially continue next time.
Yes.
Because I know one of the things we're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we're both loving it so far.
So far, so good.
Yeah. On that tease, till next time, folks, just remember, if you have any bad feelings, just turn it off like a light switch. You know, nothing bad will happen if you do that. Nope, no unfortunate implications about that whatsoever.